Department of Health, who has been critical in our decision making. Yesterday, my team and I were able to answer a number of questions that were provided from the community, and today we will continue to address questions while being able to address and dedicating 15 minutes at the end of our hour session to address students with exceptional disabilities along with English language learners, what we will do to help them be successful along the way during this trying time and as we reopen. For those of y'all who are joining us for the first time today, we will be utilizing Pigeonhole Live. This is an interactive mobile website where you can submit questions to our team members, and then we'll answer your questions during our event. You can also go on and vote for the questions that may interest you, and that will be able to push the questions that are the most popular questions to the front so that we can answer during the hour time frame that we have today. If you would like to, during this presentations, if you'd like to go any questions and also vote, go to pigeonhole.at and then type in the event code, which will be back to school. Once again, you can go to pigeonhole.at and then type in the user event code, which is back to school. Questions with the highest number of votes will stand a better chance of getting answered today, just like yesterday from our Q&A. So again, we want to thank all of our families, our community members, our employees for submitting your questions. And now I would like to share a message to our Spanish-speaking audience. Mr. Pablo, will you please address?
Bienvenido a Dialogue with Davis. Esta mañana estaremos dando respuestas a sus preguntas más comunes sobre nuestro plan de reapertura. Respuestas estarán en nuestro website hillsboroughschools.org y será transmitida con subtítulos en español después del evento en vivo. Gracias por participar en esta importante conversación.
All right, thank you, sir. We really appreciate it. And all right, so now let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and get started. The first question, why are we not just starting with e-learning like all the other hotspot districts in Florida for the first 9 weeks? This is a question we can continue to get, and it's a rightfully so question. As you can see, Hillsborough County is in phase 2. If you look at Palm Beach, Broward County, and Miami-Dade, they are identified in phase 1, which is identified by Tallahassee Department of Health. But right now, even though that we have the numbers that match Palm Beach, we are identified in phase 2 in Hillsborough County. Therefore, with those 3 school districts being in phase 1, then they have the option of transition to e-learning. With us, with being in phase 2, we just don't have that option. The emergency order has been very clear that we must open 5 days a week and for brick and mortar for students and parents and who desire to put their students in those types of that type of situation. Therefore, we do not have the luxury to do so. All right, we'll go to the next question. Families with multiple children cannot be online at the same time to honor the e-learning schedules being outlined as required. How will we provide flexibility to these families? We will do everything we can to help our families. We know that we have siblings in our homes that and there may not be a sufficient number of devices for accessibility. We face that issue and that potential problem or that barrier during the fourth 9 weeks as we launch e-learning. As we transition to remote learning, we will be there to continue to help and assist in any way. I know that originally that when we transitioned the fourth 9 weeks, we gave 1 per family, and then we circled back to be able to try to assist families who had multiple children within our school district. We will do the same thing here. We will have make sure we have the accommodations for 1 per family, and then we will transition to be able to address any other family members that may need additional devices so that they can continue to stay and remain connected to the schedule that we will have outlined. I think we're in a lot better space from a device opportunity we were in the fourth 9 weeks. We've ordered a number of devices, and we stand ready and prepared to help our families so that their children can be successful and that this barrier may not potentially exist. Okay, will there be a device for every family, for every student in e-learning? Right now, we learned that through the e-learning process in the fourth 9 weeks that we have a large number of our families that do have devices, and we show that close to 38 to 39,000 families needed our device. We are still committed to make certain that we help families in need, but we just do not have 220,000 devices that are functional to be able to extend to our families as we transition to e-learning. We will continue to connect with our family members and stay connected to our students and our principals to determine what the actual needs will be, and we will address every learner along the way to help them so that they can be successful. So I know that once again we gave out close to 38 to 39,000 devices in a short period of time, and since then we've had some additional orders, and we stand prepared. Mr. Bunkley, who is our Chief of Technology, anything would you like to add there, sir?
No, sir. We've continued the cleaning process as we've collected them from the families. We've collected at this time of the 39,000 devices, we've collected about 20,000 back. The reason we have not collected the full 39,000 is for the summer enrichment programs where we left the devices in the learners' hands to try and avoid the summer drop. So we will continue to clean and be prepared to support our learners in the best way possible.
Thank you, sir. All right, next question. Will students be traveling to music, art, or PE, or will the teacher come to them? Mr. Connor? Mr. Connor is our Deputy Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. So as feasible, we will try our best to ensure that students remain in their cohorts at the elementary level for the better part of the day to minimize exposure. And that will involve some of our music, art, and PE teachers traveling to the classroom where feasible. So while it may not be at every school at every grade level, we are going to try our best and ensure, based on the scheduling of each school, to have teachers travel to the classrooms versus students traveling to the teacher. At the middle school and high school level, students will be traveling to their classes just due to the configurations of those grade bands. So that is the answer to that.
Thank you, sir. And the other thing we have to understand is that while we'll try to control movements and of our students, but you got to understand that, and I said it last week, that the teacher's classroom is filled with heart, it's filled with materials and everything they need to be successful. So I know that there may be potential modifications that we will have to make in order to go to our children where they are within our classrooms to eliminate movement. But there are some classrooms that we just would not be able to do due to the resources needed to effectively move forward with educating our children and meeting the standards that are outlined by the Department of Education. Okay, what will FSA testing look like for students that have elected e-learning? So first and foremost, let me being clear, as we transition and you see so many school districts across the state have different variations and innovative strategies that they are implementing, it's going to be very difficult for FSA. I have openly asked the Florida Department of Education to reconsider extending grades and to hold us harmless once again, because overall it's not about school grades at this particular time. Do we need accountability for FSA assessments? We do need the information. And the information's only for us to be able to determine whether or not a learner met the grade level expectations by content, and for us to be able to build interventions or offer enrichment opportunities and build a master schedule in the 2022 school year to help them be successful. So I will say that I would go ahead and forecast the Department of Education has not outlined how this will look for e-learning, but this is a very secured assessment. So I would say why individuals have elected to transition to e-learning, I would say there's going to have to be proposed schedules and schedules built where these individuals are going to have to transition back to a brick and mortar setting in order to take any type of assessment. So I'm going to continue to push Department of Education to think differently about overall grades, but I do believe that we may need the information in order to inform our decisions as we transition to the 21-22 school year. Okay, well, at what point will the district go to full e-learning model? As I said earlier, I answered the question related to the phases identified from Tallahassee and Department of Health. Right now being in phase 2 that we are, half capacity. If we transition back to phase 1, which is the stay-at-home order, then we will openly go to full-fledged to transition to e-learning. We are ready. Over the last, 6 to 7 weeks, we have prepared multiple models. We are prepared to transition back to e-learning to continue to extend that opportunity if we're ever faced with transitioning back to phase 1. All right, how are middle school and high school students going to transition to their various classrooms through tight hallways? I'm going to move to and allow our Chief of Operations, Mr. Farkas, to talk about the controls that we will be putting in place. We will also be working with, this is why the 2 weeks pushback will allow us to continue to work with school-based leaders, also with our teachers, to create controlled movement and structures. But I'll let Mr. Farkas, or our Chief of Operations, answer this question.
Thank you, Superintendent Davis. The reality is that the procedures and routines that we do in elementary school are going to be now something we're going to do in middle and high school as well. Part of that is just a new way of work. A new way of work for that is quite simply the signage that goes along with it. Walking on the right-hand side of hallways, basic ideas of how we do in that format. The other part is that we're going to stop and have administration help us with stop the congregation of hallways. A lot of times the hallways get congested because groups of friends in a normal high school pattern are going to sit and talk to one another. We understand that's part of it, but under the new conditions of COVID, that's not something that we can allow to happen. Therefore, if we have movement on the right-hand side on both sides of that hallway, it's going to stop the congestions in the hallway. There's still going to be a lot of people there, as Superintendent Davis has referenced many times. We're not set up for social distancing, but we're going to do all we can to make sure that we don't have that congregation and that we've got ample movement, ample room for movement within those hallways.
Thank you, sir. It's a lot easier to control in the elementary setting, so that we can have structured movement and potentially in the middle school, but we'll continue to put in safety measures to make certain that we have controls, such as one-way directional hallways potentially, so that the interaction and congestion may not be there. Okay, will teachers' lunchtime remain protected from supervision of students in the classroom? Absolutely. We want to be able to protect our teachers from covering during lunches. We know that that's the time for them that they need. They need to re-energize, regroup. They need to continue to take on any personal activities during that time. So we want lunch to be completely our educators. There may be emergency situations that we may have to ask an educator and then potentially and then compensate them to cover a lunch in any way, just in case, and at a worst case scenario. But for overall, we will protect our educators' time related to lunch. So along the way, we will engage teachers if there's some type of emergency that we will be faced with. But if this ever has to come, we will make certain that individuals are compensated for their time along the way. Is there a limit to the number of children per e-learning class? We're going to, right now, we're going to continue to follow the statutory requirements of being a school district of choice, and that's make certain that we are working with the overall average related to our schools. So this is no different than children being in brick and mortar. So the same guidelines go. We're relatively looking and speaking at the averages of 18, 22, and 25. 18 elementary, are for primary from 4 to 8 is going to be 22, and ninth grade to 12th grade in all core classrooms, it is 25. So we're going to continue to protect that model and to make certain that that we have enough staff to be able to serve children in a proactive manner. Can you please go to the detail about students wearing masks to schools? Are they required all day, even in the classroom, while sitting at their desk, etc.? I said it openly, is that we're going to require masks, so where students cannot social distance. So while, they're in the classrooms, so we want children to have them. We know that we're going to have to take time to potentially go outside to have, a chance for mask breaks. But if we are in a situation where students who do not have exemptions, and they are social distance, they are 6 feet away, then we will allow them to potentially remove that. But I will tell you, we will work diligently, in every one of our classrooms to create that structure. It may be more difficult to do, but there's a number of exemptions for face coverings that we will have for our parents. Mr. McCauley, anything that you want to add to that? Nope, he's good to go. Dr. Kemp, good to go. All right. Will teachers and staff be provided advanced PPE such as N95 mask or eyewear? I'll go ahead and transition to Mr. Farkas and then potentially Mr. Culpepper.
Sure. Thank you, Superintendent. We're going to provide face coverings for all of our staff, but there are some special circumstances. We have deaf and hard of hearing students. We also have K through 2 students that need phonemic awareness and need to see the mouth movement of the teacher, things like that. So we have actually purchased shields, clear plastic shields that can be used in situations like that. Each student is unique, but the reality is N95 masks are used in hospital settings. That's where they'll focus on that part of it too. The CDC recommendation is face coverings, and that's what will be provided. The eyewear is not part of what has been recommended so far, but we'll continue to look at that if that's an option. But right now, we'll provide face coverings, as we've said, and the superintendent said, 3 of the reusable face coverings for each student and for each staff member.
Thank you, sir. All right, next question. Elementary question. Why not give educators and their students and parents the flexibility with a daily schedule for e-learning to meet the standards expected? A rigid schedule is not best practices. So, and I'll transition to Mr. Connor, but I will say this. We are in the emergency order. We have got to make certain that we have and can justify seat time along the way. And in that emergency order, they're very clear about offering remote live learning that is consistent to what we are offering during the school day. So we are required to make certain that children follow the same schedule that they do during the school day, to make sure they log in, to make sure there's an attendance protocol, to make sure that they are getting clear direction for for that assignment or for that grade or the daily lesson. And we know that it may be better to have that flexibility, but the flexibility comes to is why we have Hillsborough Virtual. Hillsborough Virtual gives the flexibility to our students. Daily attendance requirements and puts them. Mr. Connor, anything you want to add?
Several subjects related to ELA, social studies, math, and writing, and for students to get that exposure will be similar to that of the getting that instruction throughout the day during scheduled times so that we meet the needs of all of our students in the e-learning format.
Thank you, sir. All right, next question. I choose e-learning. At the end of the 18 weeks, will there be a new declaration of intent for the second semester? What will we have to do to get back in the brick and mortar school? Absolutely. As we, the biggest thing that we had to create that commitment for is all about having consistency with staff allocation models and making certain that we are in line with statutory requirements related to class size, so that whether it be face-to-face or whether a lot better space related to COVID. We may be in a potential that we continue to give our parents options to extend high quality lessons to our children. Given or allowed to provide their own plexiglass for their classrooms or workspaces. At this time, we are not going to allow educators to transition and bring their own plexiglass to the classrooms in their workspaces. We are going to make certain when we work with our safety division. We're going and we want to make certain that along the way, along with coverings, to continue to protect.
I do want to point out that while we do not discourage, at least acknowledge that if teachers do bring that in, that's just an extra surface that has to be wiped down between groups of kids that might come and go from
e-learning. Why not make it a 9-week commitment opposed to 18 weeks? And, we continue to get the question of, can we just make this a 9-week commitment? We got to understand that as we transition to October, we once again are having to deal with class size and reviews from the state level. So we want to make certain that as we get to that October FTE, that will transition to the second 9 weeks, that we are consistent. So if we're bringing back individuals after the first 9 weeks, we're starting to see an influx of class sizes, meaning we're going to have to move teachers, and we could be subjected to potential negative financial impacts from the Florida Department of Education. We just don't want to do that. We want to make sure we've always been in good standings, and we've always done a really nice job in Hillsborough County related to the class size. We want to make sure we continue to stay within the requirements outlined by the Department of Education. How often will bathrooms be sanitized, and who will be asked to supervise and check them? We're going to sanitize them often, as more frequently than we ever have before. And we talk about who's going to be asked to supervise and check them. Everyone on campus, and I say that. And there has to be 360 accountability from students to educators at transition, to administrators, to support staff. We've got to have all hands on deck to make certain if there's issues that arise, we're there to address them. If they don't have sufficient supplies, we articulating that during the day and not wait till we get home. And that we've got to have organizational controls. I spoke about it earlier, that we're going to have to look at potentially flexing staff's schedules from custodial staff schedules. Potentially the bulk of our individuals work in the evening. We will be transitioning some of those individuals to work in the day to have more time on task to be able to do spot checks and to create cleans in order to make certain that they are ready and primed for our users every single day. Mr. Farkas?
And just want to remind, thank you, Superintendent Davis. Just wanted to remind anybody that didn't have the opportunity to listen yesterday afternoon, we do have a reserve of supplies. It's important. We've heard that message loud and clear from staff and students and community to ensure that we've got soap, paper towels, et cetera, in each of our bathrooms. So when it's checked on a regular basis, there's feedback to the staff, as Superintendent Davis said. The reality is, if by chance they run out, we'll be able to, from our warehouses, make sure they're supplied to the school in short order, and then we'll not be waiting on those to be delivered from a vendor.
Yeah. And the big thing you see, our administrators are visible and accessible. They're in hallways. So while they're doing their hallways, monitoring hallways, in the classrooms, coming out of the classrooms, interacting with students, they will do checks along the way to be able to make certain that there's signals to our custodial staff to be able to clean properly. Okay, if school start date is delayed 2 weeks, how will we make up those days? Will we lose early release Mondays, Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, Fair Day, etc.? So right now we have a proposed schedule that will go to the board on Thursday, and we have a number of non-student days that we could address within the calendar. The biggest thing we've got to do is make certain that we hit all of the 900 hours related to elementary, and also in the high school model, every credit hour has to be 135 hours, within reason to be able to have fulfill that credit. So what we're going to do is we're going to present information to the board. So I would tell you to continue to watch what we're going to do for Thursday. I don't want to get in front of the board about our plan, because I want our board to feel comfortable. We work with a calendar committee yesterday to identify proactive steps to protect Thanksgiving break, to protect as many early releases as we can, to protect winter break, Fair Day, those types of things, so that children can have a robust experience. So we're going to protect as many opportunities as we can, but the reality is that we're going to have to make some modifications in order to fulfill the days that we could potentially miss with putting the school day back. Anything, Mr. Connor? All right, thank you. If parents choose brick and mortar before the town hall, but want e-learning after, can they change their pick? Just email us. If there's right now, if you believe that there's an adjustment you want to make, just let us know. I would reach out to your principal. They have the accessibility to make modifications to your declaration. Once again, for the individuals that have not responded, principals have accessibility to that information. They are contacting parents, right now for confirmation. So if there's a need to make any kind of changes, just let us know. We'll work with you along the way. Will teachers start on July 31st, even if the start date is pushed back? Right now, that is the plan for us to be able to use that day and for us to transition back, and the schedule will remain the same for all employees as of right now. So I would say Thursday we'll be able to have better definition of what the outcome will be related to potentially, the board approving my recommendation, and that will allow us to continue to stay on the same schedule for our employees. If a student has a medical exception from wearing a mask, how are you going to keep the other students and the staff safe since the child cannot wear a mask? Well, the regulations are that every other student will be wearing a mask. We know there's going to be exemptions. We'll make certain that we have social distance within our classrooms, but every other learner will be expected to wear a mask. So we know that the face coverings is a deterrent. So we will continue to make sure we monitor and keep that individual in the classroom protected along the way. Will teachers be provided plexiglass for their small group tables? I think we just addressed that earlier. Face coverings will be the way that we will go in transition, to help our learners in small group instruction. What safety protections are in place for our bus drivers? I'm going to transition to Mr. Farkas.
Thank you, Superintendent Davis. On each bus, we have hand sanitizer when you first get on the bus is one of the most important things that we're going to have. Also, behind each bus driver, we're going to block off that first seat to ensure we have the cleaning supplies, because the bus drivers in between runs will have the opportunity to wipe down those high touch points. We'll also have the opportunity to wipe down seats where available. And again, all students will be required to wear a mask. If by chance the learner gets on the bus, doesn't have a mask, disposable masks will be on the bus for those that forget to ensure. So the bus driver is going to be wearing a mask. Every student's wearing a mask. We're wiping down the high touch points, and hand sanitizer will be provided to every person that gets on that bus.
Thank you, sir. And at the routes, we're going to be cleaning every seat. We're going to be cleaning every handle, every part of that bus before a new cohort of learners transitions on the bus or off the bus. So we appreciate our staff, helping us in that process, and we'll make certain that it's a safe learning environment as students transition on and off. Okay, will there be HEPA filters and AC units in all of our school sites? How often will the air filters be changed? I'm going to transition back to Mr. Farkas.
And we addressed a little bit of this yesterday afternoon, so I encourage you to look at that town hall if you get an opportunity. But the reality is we all have MERV filters in each one of our air conditioning. We have particle filters in every air conditioning system. We're currently looking at what the best option is. The HEPA filter requires a different pull from the air conditioning system. And the last thing we want is to put a nice filter on there that unfortunately results in the air conditioning system either breaking more often or that the motor on that has to work harder and causes other problems. So working with engineers, currently working with the county government to see what they're doing to try to look for the best approach to it. But we want to assure you that there are MERV filters in every single one of our schools, and we're looking at how to increase that with either a different type of and a higher level MERV filter or coming with UVC or ionization.
Thank you, sir. So how are we going to handle middle and high school students passing from class to class? I think we just answered that one. We're going to go to the next one. Are we going to that's a same question up again. If elementary students are pulled out for gifted services outlined on their exceptional plan, will they still be able to go to these classes? If they choose e-learning, will they receive these services? Our plan remains the same. I want to go transition to Mrs. Brown and then potentially Mr. Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. And yes, any student that receives services, whether it be services for gifted education or services for exceptional student education, will receive those services. Mr. Connor?
Okay, we're good. So nothing changes. We'll continue to make certain that they are provided. Everything is outlined in IEPs and identifies it. Mr. McCauley?
I would just add that to Ms. Brown's comment, we are going to provide all of those services as we are required by federal and state law. Obviously, it will look a little different, particularly if a student is engaged in e-learning. Those teachers that are certified to provide that type of enrichment will engage the kids in just different ways through that platform. Certainly, if they're brick and mortar, everything is as it normally would be.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, when will e-learning students be able to update their electives based on what is available to them? Right now, we are looking at every declaration of intent from our students, matching that up, regardless of if it's brick and mortar and e-learning. We are in the process of matching our learners to the master schedule, determine what electives may need to be offered. As we've said openly, our electives, we're going to offer as many as we can, but it'll be limited. We will not have every elective that we offer in a brick and mortar school, and however, we are working to provide potential live streaming, which is going to have to be bargained, and to be able because we want to make certain that we are protecting every one of our employees. So, as we in the next week, as we continue to look at master schedules, determine the overall needs within for our learners who have e-learning, we'll begin communicating with our parents about what electives will be continued to be offered during this process. Mr.
And just to add to that, if there is a particular elective that is not available at the school site in an e-learning fashion, but is available through Hillsborough Virtual or even Florida Virtual, if not offered through Hillsborough Virtual, students will have the opportunity to enroll in that specific elective for that time period.
Thank you, sir. Has the district researched the bandwidth needed for schools to do live classes? Just based on last year, many students and instructors had problems with being able to do Zoom live. And last year I'm going to transition to our new Chief of Technology Officer, Mr. Jeremy Bunkley. But last year we had issues with Zoom. Had issues. That platform was a national platform being used. They had many issues with security that they quickly and swiftly addressed to be able to transition and put greater controls overall from a national perspective. And so I'll let Mr. Bunkley address our availability to do so.
So we have. And the truth of the matter is our network was never built to handle this, as many school districts weren't built to handle this. As the teachers are instructing from their home, it's the home network, not the school network, that is supporting the teachers' broadcast. As we bring them in, we will continue to make adjustments as is required. We will have to continue to build out our infrastructure. This is a known. And we will be making aggressive stances towards rebuilding that infrastructure through federally funded programs like E-Rate. It is not something that will happen overnight. A network of this size does not make these type of adjustments on a dime, but we will support our learners in moving forward with technology in this district.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. So how do you plan on introducing and acclimating students to the new LMS system, Canvas? So you'll start to see in the next week, you'll start to see video modules that will be sent out to our students, and we will be posted on our website and social media. Those are to train children and our students how to interact with Canvas, how to continue to connect and obtain their lessons, how to connect with our teachers, and all those elements. So not only will we have forecastability for having the videos for our students, we'll also have the same modules for our parents can interact with as well. So that'll be forthcoming in the coming week. And so please be able to on the lookout that we will push through Parent Link. We will also upload once again on our website. Will face shield be acceptable to wear? We're looking at, we said before, this is why we moved the conversation from masks to face coverings. So we will, as Mr. Farkas spoke about, we will be providing face coverings for educators in K2 especially, and then that is going to be acceptable for a learner to wear. That will be acceptable for an educator or an employee to wear within our organization. How can academic tests be made equitable for those in brick and mortar classroom and e-learning? This is it's a great question. We're trying to figure out an overall plan for how to protect and ensure that individuals who are e-learning are actually taking the assessment. So there may be, and I'm saying this openly today, there may be a requirement for those who are taking e-learning that will have to have scheduled assessments to come into our brick and mortar schools, and that we will have designated areas to be able to set up to be able to protect every one of our students that will social distance and put them in large areas to make certain that we get baseline information, mid-year information, or end-of-the-year information to be able to continue to understand how we will scaffold the instructional process or how we will differentiate. And we know that readiness levels of children are definitely different. So we've got to have information, informed information of how we will continue to serve every one of our learners along the way. Mr. Connor.
In academic services, we're also doing some research around web conferencing technology to proctor and monitor assessments as they are done through the e-learning platform. So in talking with other districts, surrounding districts, we're all banding together to look at virtual opportunities to proctor assessments as well.
Yep. Thank you, sir. Can the teacher have a thermometer to do temperature checks in the morning for their students? At this time, we are not asking in any way, shape, or form our teachers to be involved with this and be involved in this process. We want to leave this to our practitioners. We have nurses in our schools. They will be the ones that have trained, that are trained, are going to focus on this. We want to remove any other element from our teachers. You know, they signed up to educate children, and I know they would love to do this to further protect themselves and others, because teachers have a magnificent heart. But we're going to try to take that away from take that away from our educators, and we'll handle that with taking the temperatures of adults as they transition. Anything, Ms. Brown? Okay, thank you. Will teachers still have evaluations and observations? The answer to that is yes. As of right, we've got to make certain that that we continue to help teachers grow in their profession. And the evaluations is all about how we evolve, evolve our craft. And the observations will always be scheduled, whether it's going to be, virtual observations through e-learning, or whether it's going to be brick and mortar. We will do our due diligence to work with our staff members to have a thoughtful plan, to have a pre-observation meeting to talk about lessons, to talk about readiness levels of our students, to talk about, the overall development and the flow of the day. And then we'll go in and transition to be able to focus on children and have a collective conversation afterward about how the lesson worked and how we will continue to evolve to improve the experiences for our learners. Will students that choose e-learning, will they still be able to do electives and extracurricular activities? The answer is yes. We will have electives available for e-learning. We will, as we get closer to identifying the needs of our master schedules, we'll have a better indication to communicate with stakeholders about what they will be offered, especially at the secondary level. We'll do elementary, you can go ahead and plan for all the specials to be extended. As it relates to extracurricular activities, the answer is yes. We want our children to be actively involved. So if you select e-learning, we will still have opportunities for your child to be connected. And we want them to be, but those connectivity will have to be aligned to their actual home school. So as they transition to e-learning, their home school, those activities will be linked to their school that they're under record with. And also for any individual that transitions to Hillsborough Virtual, they will have the affordability to go and involve in our extracurricular activities aligned to their neighborhood boundary school. Okay, if classes close, what is the plan to provide continuity for education and other school services for our children? If closed due to the exposure to COVID, what is the advised timeline for return? So those are twofold. So when we talk about closure, the continuity is our e-learning. So if we have to close, we will transition. This is why the importance of having Canvas. We're going to be able to upload all of our lessons, upload our curriculum guides, and be able to have live instruction through this new tool. And this is why it's so important for every one of our stakeholders to, when we push out new Canvas training, to please make certain that we pay attention to it for our students and also for our parents and our educators. We're doing a really nice job providing professional learning right now to our employees. Thank you for those who've already signed up during the summer. We start on July 6th and it'll go all the way to July 31st, and it'll be ongoing. So that will, Canvas will allow us to do a better job than what we did with SB. As you know, SB just couldn't handle the national push, and but they've got better as they evolved during the fourth quarter. But we will be transitioning to Canvas. That gives us a better platform that can hand the traffic to allow us to connect. And the last question: will the close due to exposure? What is the advised time for return? And this is all going to be contingent on the number of cases within a school, contingent on the number of cases that have deemed positive. Also looking at in connection with our health department, looking at our local health practitioners and partners, and also looking at the safety division to figuring out what we can and cannot do related to making certain that we get the school primed and ready to return. And then also it's linked on the declaration of where we are related to as Hillsborough. Are we in phase 1? Are we in phase 2? And that will drive and determine whether or not we're able to open up our doors for our students along with our employees. All right, we're going to take one more question before we transition the conversation to students with disabilities and also English language learners. All right, so what about kids with disabilities? This is a perfect segue, about how our children with autism and SPD to wear masks and, face shield for 8 hours, how this aid be able to help them for 6 feet for social distancing. So we're going to this conversation right now. We'll transition to, Mrs. Brown along with our new chief of equity diversity, Dr. Monica Vera-Tirada, who's come from the Department of Education, drove all of the work as bureau chief in the Department of Education. This is her wheelhouse as well. So I'm going to turn this conversation over to them and then let Mr. Connor come in just to talk about how we're going to continue to offer specialized services for students in need within our school district.
Thank you, Superintendent. This is a really good question. I think it's important to keep in mind that there are many students for whom being able to wear a mask, understand how to wear it properly, the social distancing, and also hand washing, that there'll be a requirement that we really expect that we'll need to teach them and model that for them. And so that would be work that would happen with the teachers, the support personnel, paraprofessionals. I see there's a mention of that in this particular question, along, of course, with the families. What's the best way that we can help support and teach your child on the steps that need to happen in order for your child to be safe in school.
Thank you.
I'll pass this to my colleagues if anybody wants to add anything to that.
We'll go to the next question.
I'd like to just piggyback on what the doctor was saying regarding how we are going to work and support with students with disabilities. And I think everyone has to recognize that this is a most unique population that requires a great deal of flexibility in the kinds of things that we might do with them. Obviously satisfying requirements of an IEP, but even more importantly, satisfying the needs of the kids on a daily basis in a practical manner, knowing that they're not necessarily going to be able to wear masks or be comfortable with masks, or for that matter, even the caregivers, the teachers and the aides wearing masks, because that's different than what a lot of these kids are used to. So their reactions are going to be unique. We trust our teachers to make good judgment on what they do with the kids, whether they wear face shields or they wear masks or they try to just engage in a lot of frequent high-touch wiping down and hand washing, things that have to become routine for the kids in some of our more unique settings. So there's got to be some flexibility there to let teachers use their judgment and work with the families and the kids to make this right for them.
Okay, so when we talk about extended services, also English language learners, Mr. Connor, can you speak to the viewers about what strategies we will continue to have in place, how we'll continue to help our students?
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. We are committed to continuing our services for identifying students, our English language learner students, as well as serving them and meeting their instructional needs. So we are committed to making sure that all of our EL committees continue to meet to document those instructional services and update them depending on the delivery model of the student, whether that be face-to-face or e-learning and virtual. So those committees will meet, and we will use technology to make sure that that happens in whatever format is going to benefit the parent. If that is a face-to-face meeting or if that is a virtual meeting, we will make sure that the technology is there to conduct those meetings. We also are providing professional development training for our paraprofessionals who service our ELL students, as well as our resource teachers. We want to make sure that they are well equipped, depending on the instructional delivery model, that they can support their ELLs in those frameworks. Also in Canvas, there is technology to translate. So when parents engage or students engage, there are 35 languages that Canvas will be able to translate to help support our students. So the answer is whatever it takes, whatever means necessary, we will continue to engage and be committed to identifying and supporting our ELL students through whatever platform or means necessary.
Thank you, sir. All right, next question. How will an annual IEP meeting be held? How will e-learning students receive services such as speech therapy?
So thank you. Well, the annual IEP meetings will continue to be held, and you'll have some choices. Obviously, we have an option of brick and mortar when it's safe to do so, and certainly using our virtual options. If you are a parent whose child is in an e-learning or our Hillsborough virtual, you can also use the virtual option. But we can certainly, even students who are enrolled in brick and mortar, a benefit to some of the technology that we've become much more comfortable with is use those technologies to continue to hold meetings that allow greater engagement for families, et cetera. So we're excited about that. Now, moving on to the second question, because it's a little bit different. How will e-learning students receive services such as speech therapy? So it's really important that for all our students who have individual education plans, including 504 plans, first and foremost, of course, they will be receiving the services that are outlined in their plans. If you are a student who is participating in our Hillsborough virtual, your services and related services, your direct support, your related services, all of those will need to be the types of services that can be provided virtually. The same thing would be for our e-learning students. So those services would be provided remotely and virtually. All of our teachers, special education teachers, exceptional education, our therapists, our student services personnel, so our school counselors and school social workers are all going to be also using Canvas. And so for every parent, that is going to be your place to go and get information for your students on how you can support their learning, what they're learning, and ways that you can partner with the team. So as an example, the same expectation that we would have for core classroom teachers, the same for our ESE teachers, as well as our related service providers, that there's live instruction, there's live in that e-learning context, there's live therapy, and there's a schedule that's there that will be available and will be expected to be followed. Thank you.
Thank you.
The only thing I'd like to add to that is that is also true for students with a 504 plan. We will also do the same thing to accommodate those students, to ensure the accommodations are applied for those students. We will meet with those families to determine what is in the best interest in the accommodations to ensure that those accommodations are granted.
One last comment, Mr. Superintendent, for all of us to remember that students with disabilities, students receiving supports under ELL or 504 are general education students first, then they receive those supports.
That's right.
So we have to do everything we can from a core gen ed kind of perspective on how we support students with disabilities.
Thank you. Next question. Children with special needs may not fully understand keeping on a mask, frequently hand washing, etc. What is a plan to keep them safe?
I think that we address that. Yeah. So we're going to be teaching them and working alongside them so that they better understand how to keep themselves and others safe. Thank you.
I agree. If a parent elects Hillsborough virtual school over Florida virtual school and their child is on access points, are courses available to them that are on access points curriculum, or parents should choose e-learning? That's
a really good question. Thank you for that. So currently, both Florida Virtual School and Hillsborough Virtual School do not have access points courses. That's traditionally been courses that follow the traditional standards, the traditional Florida standards. And so for students who are participating in access points courses, e-learning would be a great option for them. And so please be sure that you're communicating that as you're working to make your declaration and you're accessing information with your school team. Asking those questions is really important, so thank you for that.
Thank you. ESE classrooms and students with ASD. Will the school allow children with special needs to be exempt from wearing masks during the lesson if they are 6 feet apart? I think we answered that as well. We're going to continue to work with our learners and make sure that we can practice social distance where available for face coverings. All right. All right, so we'll go back. We've got a couple minutes. We'll go back to some general questions. So thank you, each of you, for helping us to talk about students with disabilities and also the English language learners.
While we transition to those classrooms, I just want to thank our teachers. We have had over 7,500 teachers in the month of July get trained on Canvas, with 2,000 more being scheduled in the next week or so. So we applaud those teachers who have taken the time over the summer, and we applaud our administrators. We've had over 700 administrators that have been trained on Canvas, and we will continue through our Professional Studies Day and as we lead up to the start of school to offer trainings. And again, as reiterated yesterday, we will have an on-demand video series for our parents launching by August 1st to learn the functionality of Canvas, and as well for our students as well.
Thank you. So as we get the next question up, I just want all of our viewers to understand that this information will be, we will absorb all of the questions that we have. We will continue to update every one of the questions with the answers that we'll put on our FAQ. That will be located on our hillsboroughschools.org. Please make certain that you continue to look. We will have a differentiation to highlight, new weekly questions. That way that you can see the difference of what may be new that you may not have been answered. So we'll continue to provide that in both English and Spanish for every one of our stakeholders. All right. So go ahead.
One other thing around elective courses. I know there's been some concerns around elective teachers who are a little concerned about whether they will have their job. Please know that we are not anticipating making cuts in the electives. Really, the challenge becomes with our elective courses in the e-learning platform is around having the availability, having face-to-face and the e-learning, and multiplying those efforts for teachers to do both, and that's a challenge for us. So I just want to put our teachers at ease that because we may not be offering certain electives in the e-learning model, that is no indication that we are making any cuts to elective teachers. So I just want to make sure teachers understood that.
Okay. Go ahead, Doctor.
Thank you, Superintendent. I also just want to reassure our families and teachers and community members that we are absolutely paying attention to not only the physical needs, the academic needs, but also the social emotional needs. And we know that these times have been very trying for families and for students. And so our student services personnel, our partners in our community agencies are going to be working hand in hand to be sure that our students who need both school-based mental health services or more intensive supports are provided those, as well as that every student has the opportunity to engage with teachers and school-based personnel to really reflect on social emotional learning. What are those things that I need to be able to help deal with the stressors, deal with the anxiety, feel safe and comfortable in school? So we're prepared to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go to the next question. Will my child have to switch teachers if we move from brick and mortar to e-learning? Right now, whenever your child starts, that will be the educator on record to help your child. If we transition to e-learning, the educator will say the same. If we have to have a closure in any way, shape, or form, that educator will be consistent. That way we have that continuity. If for some reason, for a case-by-case basis, there's an immediate need to make a change midstream, then if approved due to some type of hardship, then I will tell you then that your teacher will potentially change if that has to happen, if that has to occur. All right, how will we keep our custodians, bus drivers, and everyone who will be cleaning areas safe from getting the virus themselves? And will more custodial staff members be hired? Mr. Farkas?
We've got a couple different approaches, Superintendent. The first one is, as you mentioned a couple of times yesterday afternoon and today, is shifting some of our custodians. Many of our custodians are at night. We're going to need a few more people during the day to make sure that we hit those high touch points and are able to make sure things are clean. The reality is that Many of our custodians are already in that protocol of wearing a mask or wearing gloves as they clean, so it will be a natural for some of them. But we'll make sure that we inform and talk about procedures and routines so that all of them are wearing them. The other part is, are more going to be hired? Yes, Dr. Whalen has been recruiting for bus drivers, for custodians for us. Obviously, COVID put a hamper on what we were doing as far as processing new employees, things like that we normally do during the summer. However, in a safe environment that we've created at the processing center, now we are actually hiring new people. So yes, custodial staff will be part of it. Bus drivers will be there. So if you're interested, please go on our website. We'll be happy to look at you for a possible employment with the school district.
Thank you. Will masks be used outside during recess, PE, in elementary schools? At this time, where we can social distance when they go outside, then where face coverings can be moved if they're in a safe manner. So we'll continue to help and provide ongoing professional development to our teachers and to our physical education teachers so they truly understand what can and cannot be recommendations. So, at this time when they go outside, we want them to be able to enjoy their time and be able to remove their face covering as long as they are social distancing. So that'll be the last question. We thank you so very much. I'm so proud of this community that sent us thousands of questions that we're able to give priority to for the staff to be able to answer. We know that so many questions continue to exist, not only here locally in Hillsborough, but throughout the state and throughout this nation. This pandemic is impacting and creating angst to so many educators. We know that to so many leaders, to so many districts, but we're thankful for all of us being able to come together and be problem solvers. So we know that we're going to continue to evolve, and our plans are continue to be fluid as we continue to monitor this pandemic, which no one planned for. But know that everyone in the school district is working tirelessly to get this off the ground and connect with your learner along the way. So I would say, as you see and experience issues or concerns or validate great things, continue to let us know about them along the way, because we want to grow and we want to develop. So once again, we'll take this information, we'll put it all on in our FAQs on hillsboroschools.org. And it'll be available in both English and Spanish. We appreciate everyone for joining us today and becoming active participants in our reopening process. And we're thankful for the board to continue to create accountability measures for us to make certain that we are on track with moving forward with helping our students grow every single day and protecting every one of our employees. Thank you, and look forward to seeing you soon.